In this live stream, we're going over possibly some monumental and maybe national changes to how you drive on platforms like Uber, like Lyft, but even DoorDash and Postmates. So I want to welcome you to another live stream. Your driver Mike here, coming to you live from San Diego, California, going over what is called Assembly Bill 5, or AB5 for short. We're going to go over two articles, if we have time, that discuss this bill and really some very soon impending changes to these platforms. So welcome again to another live stream. Let me know where you're watching from in the live chat, or if you're watching this in the rebroadcast, definitely let us know down below in the comments. I want to welcome you guys because we're going over something really massive today. We're going to go over again two articles, both from Vox here, talking about this Assembly Bill 5. What is this? If you're new to this whole Assembly Bill 5, this AB5 discussion, let's give you a little history of what this is. As a gig economy worker, you're getting your side hustle on. Hey, maybe you're doing this full time. You're driving on these delivery platforms, the rideshare platforms, as a independent contractor. Pay attention to this, especially if you're new, or consider sharing this with someone who's thinking about driving for these platforms. When you sign up to these platforms, in their agreements, you agree that you will be classified as an independent contractor. What that means for, let's say, tax purposes is you'll get what's called a Form 1099 for taxes. And in essence, on the top of that form, you will indicate that you are self-employed. You are an individual, a sole proprietorship. That's what it's going to state on that 1099 form. Guys, I see you in here. Thanks for joining Rick Reviews and Jerry Newman in the live stream. And as a business owner, you are now responsible for tracking all of your expenses, writing off your own applicable expenses, and in addition, paying taxes on all of your earnings. 20-30% of your gross earnings could go to taxes. Now, if you were an employee, let's say, if you ever had the standard 9-to-5 job, you're an employee, right? You have a W-2 form for taxes, and your employer, they withhold the taxes for you. It makes it very easy. You don't have to worry about expenses on your day-to-day job. Okay, that pen that I use to write my paper, or the computer that I type the report on, that's part of the business expenses. No, the business deals with that. But when the business is yours, in essence, as an independent contractor, all of a sudden you have, let's say, maybe the burden of tracking all of those expenses. If you're a DoorDash driver, actually let me know right now in the live chat or the rebroadcast what platforms you're driving on right now. But if you're driving on those platforms and you buy a dash cam for security when you're on the road, really the number one accessory that I recommend here in the gig economy, that's a business expense because it's an expenditure that directly relates to your business. So this bill that we're looking at, let's go back to this first article here. This bill, AB5, which is spearheaded here in and only in California, seeks to reclassify you as a driver on any of these platforms. Again, DoorDash, Grubhub, could be Instacart, Uber, Lyft, and they all rely on these 1099 independent contractors. AB5 seeks to reclassify you as a driver to now an employee. So the shift of that burden, let's say, of all the taxation, the expenditure tracking, now would in essence shift to these companies. But there's a bigger concern for these companies. What do you get as an employee? If you're working the office job, what do you get in addition to your paycheck? You get benefits, right? You get the sick time off, you get vacation pay, you get paternity, maternity leave possibly. You get overtime, health insurance. These are benefits of being an employee. Now, that burden of paying for all of that, of course, that comes from the employer. Now, if you're a plumber, if you're an independent contractor, you own your own business, and you contract out work, you are now responsible to pay for all of that. And you don't necessarily get paid time off because you are the business owner as the independent contractor. So we're going to jump into these articles, and this first one's a little bit longer, but it's very important. It goes over a lot of detail about what's going on here in California regarding AB5. And really, guys, this is about to become law. This is about to become law here in California, and this could have some major ripple effects nationwide. So hey, if you're not even in California, you say, well, it doesn't really matter, I'm not in California. Pay attention and still watch this stream, because if and when this passes here in California, it's going to create, in my opinion, massive, not even ripple effects, but maybe tsunami effects across the entire country when it comes to this side hustle gig economy. Let's jump into it. I see you in here, guys, and thanks for being here. So this first article, California just passed a landmark law to regulate Uber and Lyft. You can see right there the caption, drivers will get healthcare and paid time off under the law. This is monumentally changing the business model for all of these companies, and we'll see that addressed here. California just disrupted the gig economy. Senate lawmakers passed a controversial bill known as AB5 on Tuesday evening. This is just happening. This is now Thursday, of course. This is just happening this week, guys. After months of uproar from businesses and gig companies like Uber and Lyft. The bill will require businesses to hire workers as employees, not as independent contractors, with some exceptions. That will give hundreds of thousands of California workers basic labor rights for the first time. And despite an aggressive lobbying campaign, Uber and Lyft are not exempt. Senators voted 29-11 in favor of AB5, and on Wednesday, yesterday, the state assembly approved their amendments to the bill. Now it heads to Governor Gavin Newsom for his signature, and he has signaled that he will sign it. This is a victory to savor, tweeted Nicole Moore, an Uber driver and organizer for Rideshare Drivers United. The new law will crack down on a business model championed and cherished by Silicon Valley, a striking turn of events for a celebrated tech industry. Uber, Lyft, and other app-based gig companies rely, like we mentioned, guys, on hundreds of thousands of independent contractors to give rides, deliver food, and complete other tasks. Reclassifying them as employees would change everything. Gig workers would get labor protections and benefits that all employees get, such as unemployment insurance. These are the benefits you would get as an employee. Listen to this: unemployment insurance, healthcare subsidies, paid parental leave, overtime pay, workers' compensation, paid rest breaks, and a guaranteed $12 minimum hourly wage. Let's not forget that minimum wage. Right now, it's really up in the air how much you can make per hour. And perhaps more importantly, they could unionize, have an organized collective voice for the direction of these companies and workers' rights specifically. The added cost of these benefits is why gig companies are so desperate for a compromise. They didn't get one, but that doesn't mean they won't keep trying. Today, our state's political leadership missed an important opportunity to support the overwhelming majority of rideshare drivers who want a thoughtful solution that balances flexibility with an earnings standard and benefits, a Lyft spokesman told Vox on Wednesday. The fact that there were more than 50 industries carved out of AB5 is very telling. We are fully prepared to take this issue to the voters of California to preserve the freedom and access drivers and riders want and need. If you don't know, the really argument from these companies, Uber and Lyft, is if AB5 passes, you as a driver will lose your flexibility driving on these platforms. For instance, Uber, Lyft, you can go online whenever you want, when it works best for you. If something comes up, maybe one of the kids needs a ride, maybe you just need to run an errand, or something just popped up in your schedule, you go offline. Now, the argument from Uber and Lyft is if AB5 passes here in California, you could lose that flexibility. Now, as an employee-employer relationship, these companies would then have the employee-employer control over your scheduling. This is inferred. Some platforms like Amazon Flex, DoorDash, they really want you to sign up for delivery shifts. Can you imagine a platform where rideshare shifts are not just suggested, but mandated? So what happens if something does come up, but you're scheduled for that shift and you can no longer keep driving your shift? That's the argument from Uber and Lyft. You would lose that flexibility. Let's go back in here to the important article. Chocolate Slayer, thanks for being in here, guys. We're going over a very important article from Vox right now. Lyft, Uber, and DoorDash have warned that they are each company is ready to spend $30 million on a ballot initiative to overturn AB5. We can see how vested these companies are if they're willing to spend $30 million each to combat AB5. We're confident that California voters support a solution that pairs worker flexibility with economic security, wrote Max Rettig, head of public policy for DoorDash, in a statement shared last week with Vox. California labor unions with support AB5 immediately shot back. We will meet the gig economy's absurd political spending with a vigorous worker-led campaign to defeat this measure to ensure working people have the basic job protections and the right to organize a union they deserve under the law. Art Pulaski, Treasury Secretary of the California Labor Federation, wrote in a statement to Vox last week. The fight between labor unions and Uber, one of Silicon Valley's most beloved instruments, is perhaps the most consequential legislative battle taking place in the country. Tuesday's vote was a stunning loss for the tech industry and a remarkable victory for labor unions. And the bill's passage will likely open the door for other Democratic-controlled states to do the same. Guys, this article is saying, like we mentioned, that just because you may not be in California doesn't mean this won't affect you, and doesn't mean that this won't eventually come to your state. Think about that. This is a monumental change to the gig economy. Now, let's explain AB5 a little bit more here. California's AB5 bill explained. The California bill, known as AB5, expands a groundbreaking California Supreme Court decision last year known as Dynamex. The ruling and the bill instruct businesses to use the so-called ABC test to figure out whether a worker is an employee. This is important. Pay attention to this. Make sure we have your full attention on this next part here. This is what distinguishes if you are an employee or an independent contractor. To hire an independent contractor, businesses must prove that the worker A is free from the company's control. Answer these questions right now, actually, in the live chat or the rebroadcast. Answer these questions. It doesn't matter the platform. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, Grubhub, Instacart, Lime, Bird. Answer these questions right now with us in the live chat or in the rebroadcast. Are you free from the company's control? Question number 1. Are you free from the company's control? Answer that question right now in the live chat or the rebroadcast. B. Is doing work that isn't central to the company's business? Do you feel you're doing work that is not central to the company's business? Answer that as well. And lastly, C, has an independent business in that industry. Do you, as a worker, have an independent business in that industry? Now, if these companies do not meet all 3 of these conditions, not just 1, not just 2, but all 3, if they do not meet these, then they have to be classified as employees. That is a much clearer and stricter, the article continues, standard of proof than the vague guidelines under federal law. And it's one of the biggest challenges yet to the profit model of Uber, Instacart, Postmates, and other tech companies that rely on a small army of independent contractors. I mean, let's be real here, guys. These companies would completely fail without us, you, the drivers, the rideshare drivers, the delivery drivers. It's the massive other side of the equation here. These companies do not work without the, quote here, a small army of independent contractors. Let's continue. Uber likely will have to reclassify tens of thousands of drivers in California as employees, something Uber drivers have been fighting for in court unsuccessfully for years. And guys, I started driving for Uber nights and weekends back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in October of 2015. We're rolling into 2020. And I have seen the arguments, I have seen the lawsuits, the demonstrations, the strikes for years, as this article states here, arguing about classification. The argument from these companies is, hey, we're a tech company. We provide the software and these apps, but we don't own the cars. We're not out on the road. We're not doing the deliveries. Therefore, we're not a delivery company. Therefore, we're not a ride-share company. We don't own the cars. We're not giving the rides. We're just creating the app. And that's the argument that, that scope of business is outside of this central role, like we see here in the ABC test. This is outside of the central role that we're doing because we're not a rideshare company. That's the argument here. Since the bill passed the state assembly in May, California businesses have been panicking over the possibility of it passing. The state's Chamber of Commerce and dozens of industry groups lobbied for exemptions, and a long list of professions was excluded from the bill. So if you're in one of these sectors, and maybe perhaps you own a business, or if you know someone that owns one of these businesses, pay attention to this. If someone you know owns one of these businesses or is in one of these sectors in California, they are exempt from AB 5. They can use independent contractors. And again, this is not meant to be legal advice here, but according to this article, if you're a doctor, dentist, lawyers, architects, insurance agents, accountants, engineers, financial advisors, real estate agents, and hairstylists who rent booths in salons, you are exempt from AB 5. Markedly missing from that, rideshare companies, delivery companies. Uber and Lyft in particular have been lobbying for an exemption to the bill in the Senate. They've been begging in public for a compromise. The companies hoped to keep treating drivers as contractors, and in exchange, they promised to set a minimum pay rate for drivers that was $21 an hour. We actually did a live stream right here talking about Uber will pay you $21 per hour minimum wage. So make sure to check out this live stream if you haven't seen that already to get the details on that minimum wage that Uber and Lyft are proposing. I'll link that up in a card above here. Now, that minimum pay rate for drivers was while they're picking up and dropping off passengers. These companies also stated they would create a company-backed fund for benefits like paid time off and would establish an association for drivers to advocate for further improvements. So what we talked about in that live stream is Uber and Lyft said, please do not pass AB 5 in California. We'll give you $21 an hour minimum while you have a passenger and while you're on the way to the passenger. That's not when you're waiting for a ride. But we'll give you, and Rip Reviews confirms that here, echoes that, $21 an hour while you are on the way to the passenger, while you have the passenger in the vehicle. We will establish a fund to give you benefits like paid time off, and we will organize a collective voice for drivers, not a union. That's not a union. But that was the pitch from Uber and Lyft. Drivers who have been organizing in support of AB 5 hit back with their own messaging, saying nothing in the law would stop the companies from offering schedule flexibility to employees. That didn't stop Uber and Lyft from ramping up their campaigns to get an exemption. In recent weeks, Uber and Lyft have been emailing drivers. Let me know if you got one of these emails, guys. Let me know in the live chat or the rebroadcast if you've received emails from Uber and Lyft, maybe even other companies, or if you've seen something in the app, begging them to contact their lawmakers to urge them to compromise these companies. Help protect rideshare in California, read one message sent to Lyft customers on August 28th. They were never able to strike a deal. Ride-hailing apps have done everything to keep drivers as contractors. Right now, guys, if you're just joining, we're going over a Vox article talking about the really impending passage of Assembly Bill 5, which seeks to reclassify gig economy workers, independent contractors here in California, as instead employees. When Uber drivers went on strike across the world in May, much of their frustration had to do with their lack of power as independent contractors. Uber's profit model, like that of other companies in the gig economy, depends on all the money saved from skirting U.S. labor laws. By classifying drivers as independent contractors instead of employees, Uber hasn't needed to pay certain taxes, benefits, overtime, or minimum wages to tens of thousands of drivers. As self-employed contractors, drivers haven't had a legal right to form labor unions or negotiate contracts until now. Uber drivers have spent more than 6 years fighting the company in court, saying they've been intentionally misclassified. They argued that drivers should be considered employees because the company has so much control. Let me know if you agree with this point here. Drivers argue that they should be considered employees because the companies have so much control over their workday, including strict rules on their vehicle conditions, what rides they can take, and which routes to use. You may know that on Uber and Lyft, if you don't take necessarily the recommended route, that fare may be adjusted for taking a longer than expected route. Over the years, Uber has refused to reclassify drivers, maintaining that drivers are not employees because they set their own schedules and provide their own cars. However, in May, Uber settled the main court case with 13,600 Uber drivers, agreeing to pay them $20 million, but without changing their status as independent contractors. The other 350,000 drivers who were part of the initial class action lawsuit had signed mandatory arbitration agreements, which in my opinion was a little tricky, we'll say, in their driver app. You guys may remember you were prompted in the past to sign arbitration agreements saying that if you had basically a problem with Uber and Lyft, a lot of these companies are leveraging these arbitration agreements, that you agreed to resolve it privately and not join a class action lawsuit. And a lot of the times this was stuffed in the app or as a document you would have to sign and agree to unless you emailed them and said opt out. It was usually a email, let's say, I don't know, arbitration@Uber, whatever the email was. And you had to make sure you said opt out. And there was even speculation about, okay, what if I said I want to opt out, or I want to opt out of binding arbitration? You know, is there some verbiage that Uber can say, oh, nope, you didn't say the specific verbiage we wanted you to? I don't know, but I remember that from years ago, that you would have to sign these arbitration agreements unless buried in that verbiage, you emailed them and said, opt out. But it will be hard for Uber to pass the ABC test that will soon become law. Driving people around in cars is a central part of the company's business. And remember, to pass the ABC test, you have to prove that the business is outside of the company's core business. And I apologize here. It looks like we're getting some lag on the live stream. I will look to resolve that for next time. Could be an issue. I appreciate you hanging on here, guys. Uber has been upfront with investors about the risk of labor revolt. At a recent Security and Exchange Commission filing, Uber acknowledged that giving drivers the same legal rights as employees would fundamentally change the company's business model. This is big. Think about this. If AB5 passes, this is really doing a 180 of these companies' business model, their financial business model. And both companies are struggling to turn a profit, losing billions of dollars annually. That's billions with a B. Hundreds of millions quarterly. Uber said in an SEC filing, this is quote, if as a result of legislation or judicial decisions, we are required to classify drivers as employees, we would incur significant additional expenses for compensating drivers. Potentially including expenses associated with the application of wage and hour laws, including minimum wage, overtime, and meal and rest period requirements, employee benefits, social security contributions, taxes, and penalties. The article continues as it finishes up here. So it's unsurprising that Uber is not happy about a law that would force the company to hire drivers as employees. As employees, gig workers would have a safety net for the first time ever. The changes from the law would also reportedly benefit the state of California. Again, guys, we're coming to you live. And hey, let's take a time out right here. If you haven't done so already, if you're getting value from this live stream, for the content here on the channel, consider leaving a like on this video It shows me that you do get value, that you enjoy the content here on the channel, gets more people in here, more people on the Your Driver Mike team, and of course, since we're beaming through the internet on YouTube, it does boost us in YouTube's All Money algorithm. If you haven't done so already, consider leaving one of these. So the article talks about the benefit to California if this passes, all the tax benefits. California, it says, estimates that it loses $7 billion in tax revenue each year from companies that misclassify employees. California has the largest state economy in the country and is home to Silicon Valley tech industry, which means its lawmakers have outside influence in national politics. The law could lead to other states to take similar action. It says it right there, guys. Even if you're not in California, consider sharing this video with a gig economy worker because, again, it's echoed right here. The law could lead other states to take similar actions. And the article concludes here. Here we are in a great economy, yet most working people have no money saved. Caitlin Vega, legislative director of the California Labor Federation, told me at the time when the bill first passed the state assembly. Companies are doing this because they can, they've gotten away with it. And that is the majority of the article there as it concludes. So I want to hear your thoughts, guys. And the second article that we were going to go over basically talks about if this passes, Uber and Lyft have no intention of really changing business as usual. And that's something that they really were spearheading when they first came into markets. And we can talk about that, but I want to get your thoughts on this. If you're in California especially, or if you're outside California, do you think this is going to come to your state, and how fast? So this bill, this AB 5 bill, is going to Governor Gavin Newsom for his signature. He has signaled that he will sign this into law here in California. And I want to show you something else. If you're interested in following updates on this bill, I can link this down below in the description. But this is really a tracker of the timeline of this bill. And we can see this was updated yesterday. We mentioned in the article, this is going to the governor of California for his signature. And I do want to do a shout out here to Harry, the rideshare guy, did a great live stream on AB5 as well. And he did link this. This is where I pulled that from. Again, that's Harry, the rideshare guy. If you're not subscribed to Harry's channel, make sure to check it out. A lot of great information and a whole team over there talking about the gig economy as well. So if you're interested in following AB5, we can link this down below in the description. But right now, let's go to you guys. I want to go to you, and we're going to look at the comments here. Let me know, how do you think this is going to change the gig economy? Is this going to completely upend these companies? Are we going to see in the next 1 to 3 years, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, some of these companies completely crumbling, closing their doors? Do you feel like these companies are going to let a bunch of drivers go? Do you think because of impending laws, they'll say, okay, well, if we're mandated to bring you on as an employee, that's fine. We're just going to make sure that you drive as little as possible if they can skirt any benefits that way. Or they're just going to minimize drivers. So now your 2-minute Uber ride, your wait for that ride may now be 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know. Because of course that's something that Uber and Lyft don't want, to damage the customer side of the platform. There's so much to consider here. Let me know right now in the comments, in the live chat, or in the rebroadcast, how is this going to, will it upend the gig economy? I'm going to give you my thoughts here in just a second. Rick Review says, I don't think it will change things much. Big companies have big lawyers and they can find big loopholes. You know, I kind of agree with that. The knee-jerk reaction is, I mean, hey, yes, if they sign AB5 into law, really the next couple of weeks here, Uber and Lyft especially have known about this trend for years. I mean, these companies are only, what, established in 2012. These are not, what, maybe 8-year-old companies. They're still pretty much brand new companies. But they've known about this, what, at least for 6 years of driver unrest and misclassification. So as they've scaled and as they've grown their bottom line, not their net profit, let's say, but let's say just their bottom line of funding, you know that they're building up that legal team for those 6 years. And they have a plan in place for the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. You can be sure of that. Mike Jones, thanks for joining. You have great content. I really appreciate that. And again, I apologize for the lag. We're having a little bit of lag here. Again, maybe it's the Wi-Fi, but I appreciate that, Mike. And it looks like maybe the webcam isn't in focus either. Sleeping Elephant, thanks for being here. Longer pickup times, less money, and less drivers. That's kind of what I was thinking, is you may experience the longer pickup times. Yes, less money and less drivers. Let's see if we can get, there we go. Camera's back in focus. Awesome, guys. So here's my thoughts on it. And again, leave a like on this video real quick if you haven't done so already. I'd really appreciate it. It does show me that you get value in these live streams, guys. If you haven't done so already, consider leaving one of those and sharing it with someone who may get valuable information from this stream. There we go. Consider sharing this across socials. I'd really appreciate it. Hit that share button and share this with someone who's interested in the gig economy. Hey, especially if they're in California. If they're in California especially, you need to share this stream with them if you're not familiar with AB5. So here's my thoughts on this, is I want you guys to do one thing, regardless of what happens. And that is to make your own economy. What I mean by that is, regardless of what happens, you need to make your own economy. You need to always be exploring new opportunities, looking for promotions. If you guys do, half of you work the W-2 job. I hear all you guys out there, those of you grinding away full time, or the other half of you, in estimate, are doing this as a side hustle with a standard W-2 job. Regardless of what happens, you need to create your own economy. You need to look at multiple revenue streams. What do they say? I'm not sure the percentage, but most millionaires, I would say, yes, I would estimate at least 85, 90% plus of millionaires have many streams of revenue, many streams of income. So if you are relying on one stream of income, I am imploring you, you need to look at other streams. Is it starting a business? Is it starting a referral program? Training. You can go on Fiverr and sell your services there. If you're a creator of physical goods, can you sell them on Etsy? Are you interested in garage flipping? You could probably make $300 just this weekend. Garage sale flipping. You can go to Goodwill and purchase products at minimal cost and flip that as well. There's a lot of ways to build secondary, third, fourth, fifth streams of income. So I am not worried about this passing. I'm not worried about AB5 passing. I don't want you to be worried about it because I want you to always look at multiple revenue streams. Now, let's talk about the gig economy with AB5. If AB5 passes and you and I are now employees here in California, expect some more rigidity, but in my opinion, the iron hammer is not going to fall here on rideshare delivery. If AB5 passes, these companies are not going to seek to just 180 their entire platforms overnight. Because they know that even doing something as small as cutting rates to 60 cents, 90 cents, years ago, 30 cents per mile in Detroit, Michigan, that in some marketplaces, drivers will not drive. So now, understandably, platforms, it's changed since those years of 2012, 13, 14, but they cannot wildly change your apps overnight. I don't want you to worry. At least in my opinion, these apps are not going to change overnight. And these companies, they want to succeed, they want to thrive, and if they're going to shoot themselves in the foot, biting the hand that feeds them, their drivers, they simply cannot afford to take a 20%, 30% driver count cut. They're already losing money. Hundreds of millions, over $1 billion last year for each of these companies. They can't afford to keep going down, and speaking of going down, their stocks are going down from their initial IPOs. Uber went on the market at what, $75 a share. These stocks are tanking. Well, I won't say tanking, but they are nosediving on close to it to $40, $30 a share. So I will say this. As much resentment from some that's out there for these companies, Uber, Lyft, there's a lot of resentment from some drivers. There's very smart people behind these companies. There's very accomplished, smart people that really just want the best for the company. And I would imagine most of them want the best for everybody, the consumer, the drivers, because when everyone's happy, their business thrives. Why would they want us as drivers to be, what, so upset with them that we leave the platforms? It doesn't help them. They don't want that. I know there's a lot of anger towards these companies, and I think they're still in, the rock and a hard place of where do we as companies find a happy medium to make the driver happy, to make the consumer happy? Because I think, yes, I believe they've been more customer-centric for the last, 3, 4-ish years. And they need to keep correcting the other way to make drivers happy, you and I. And then, and only then, will they see that profitability. Will they see the funding continue, but also the net profit get to a place where they can grow as a company? So this is interesting, guys. We'll go back to you in the comments here, but this is going to be an interesting next couple of weeks. I want you to do something for me. If you want to stay informed about AB5, or hey, if you're just interested in getting your side hustle on, starting the gig economy, making some money on any of these industries, delivery, rideshare, we're starting something new. I'm not going to say it yet, but we're starting something new, bringing you guys new content, new avenues, and new apps for the rest of 2019 and 2020. I'm excited to bring you some new apps to get your feet wet in some other apps in the gig economy. Instagram already found out what it is, so if you're not following me over on Instagram, I did a leak of that, and that is actually up in a story on Instagram. So that story is going to expire in 24 hours. So make sure to hop over to Instagram, follow me on Instagram. All my socials are at Your Driver Mike to find out what that is, because that story is going to expire pretty soon if it didn't already expire. So make sure to follow over on Instagram. Rick Reviews, look to New York Uber drivers with regulation also to see California's future. Yeah, guys, New York, that's a great comment there from Rick Reviews, has a minimum wage already. It is over $21. Because remember, Uber proposed a $21 minimum. Those New York City drivers are getting over $21. I can't remember the exact number. But remember, those drivers also have to pay for full commercial insurance on their vehicle. You and I, if you're not in New York City, you just have to get what's called a hybrid policy. You pay for your personal policy, and then your provider will also add on coverage for rideshare driving. You can give them a call and ask for a quote on it if you haven't done so already. Make sure to do it. It's usually not too much more expensive for your monthly cost to add that rideshare coverage. M. Silverhammer, Mike, when are you going to model your new Lyft, DoorDash, Amazon Flex, Postmates uniform? Your car will look cool with a pink car stash. M. Silverhammer, well, we do have a uniform content coming. Is that the right word? We do have some there we go. We do have some content featuring a new uniform coming. And again, that ties in with the new platform that we're going to be trying here in 2019. That's going to be posted on Instagram. So again, if you're not following on Instagram and across my socials, Facebook, Twitter, here of course on YouTube and Instagram, make sure to do so at Your Driver Mike. Well, guys, lots going on in the gig economy. Lots going on. I appreciate you watching another live stream here. I'm going to be in the comments answering your questions down below in the comments. So if you joined late, don't worry. I'll make sure to answer your questions down below in the comments. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and leave a like on this video on your way out. It takes just a second to leave a like on the video. It really shows me that you guys get value in this live stream and the content here on the channel. It does get more people in here, and you get to join the team right there. You get to join the Your Driver Mike team when you do subscribe. But right now, if you just leave me one of these, we are streaming here on YouTube, so it does boost us in YouTube's almighty algorithm. Again, guys, from San Diego, California, Your Driver Mike here. I appreciate you watching another live stream, and I will see you guys in the next one.